On the ESS Valiant's screen, blood and bug guts were splashed around. In a surprise attack on their vulnerable homeworld, the Zorgans killed civilians in Ivory Coast, which made Captain Zack Ryder very angry. The other species of the galaxy called humans bloodthirsty warmongers. But since humans are the only ones who want to stop this killing, they should be proud of that title. Command the Earth. Help the people of the Ivory Coast. Ask for permission to get involved. Zack yelled over the phone. Not true, sir. We're not going to get involved. Keep your place, his boss told him coldly. It was Zack who hit the console with his hand. He remembered the terrible losses during the Kelsic invasion of Earth many years ago, as well as the brutal response that saved humanity but gave them a bad name as unreliable attackers. Forget what we were told, Zack growled to his 150-person team. Plan a course for Avoria to get the most force. The engines on the Valiant roared to life. They had to get to the Ivorians quickly. People could be good in the space, and Zack was going to show them that or die trying. The Brave sped through time and space, rushing toward the faraway battle and a chance for humans to prove they were more than the bloodthirsty savages other species thought they were. From space, the view of Avoria was heartbreaking. Zack's eyes got bigger as he saw how bad the damage was. There was a lot of smoke coming from the many fires that were burning on the planet's surface. Craters were all over the towns that used to be full of life, but are now just piles of broken metal and rubble. The Zorgan fleet, which was made up of many scary ships, hung in low orbit like a cloud of locusts. "Oh my God," said Zack's second-in-command, Lieutenant Commander Olivia Chen. "It's too late." Zack clenched his teeth. "No, there have to be people who live. We are going to save all of them." All of a sudden, bells went off across the bridge. "Captain, fighters are coming," yelled Ensign Mikhail Petrov from the tactical station. A group of Zorgan fighters screamed at the Valiant, and their plasma cannons lit up with deadly purpose. Zack took action right away. Avoidance moves. "Petrov, aim at those jerks and shoot whenever you want." The engines of the Valiant began to flare as the ship swung hard to starboard. The advanced point defense lasers on the human ship turned around and locked on to the coming fighters. Energy bursts came out quickly and cut through the Zorgan ships like a hot knife through butter. The jets went off in bright fireballs and their wreckage fell into space. Zack didn't waste any time. Cams made a way for the Ivorian government to be reached. The view screen flashed, and an Ivorian's tired face showed up. High Chancellor Zelter had insect-like features that were damaged by blood and soot. "What are you?" he ordered, and his teeth clicked with doubt. "I'm Zack Ryder, and I'm the captain of the Earthship Valiant. We're ready to help. We can get your people out of there and to safety." The complex eyes of his Zelter got smaller. "Why should we believe you, person? There are people like you who start wars." Zack leaned in closer and spoke with sincerity. "Chancellor, I know how bad our name is, but we're the only ones who can save your people right now. Let us help you." The Ivorian leader paused, and his antennae started to twitch. Another blast shook the place where he was, and screams could be heard in the background. Zelter slouched his shoulders in loss. "Okay, Captain, we have no other choice. We will meet up with our survivors at these points." Zack gave a grim nod. "We are going to be there. Valiant, leave." Zack turned to his team and told them to get the drop ships ready and call the Marines. The view screen went blank. "We're going inside." After a few minutes, Zack led a group of highly armed Marines into the middle of the destruction. The Valiant flew above, its guns ready to help from the air. The humans quickly set up a defense perimeter around the evacuation site, where Ivorians were hiding in the ruins out of fear. A shower of plasma fire fell from the sky as the Zorgans began another attack wave. Zack hid behind a broken wall with his pulse gun rattling in his hands. He yelled over the noise of the fight, "Hold the line. People need time, so we need to buy it." The Marines and Ivorian fighters fought together, their weapons flashing, to stop the Zorgans' relentless attack. The way Zack led his people and planned the defense showed how good a leader and commander he was. A fighter from Ivory Coast fell after being hit by a plasma bolt. Zack ran to his side, pulled him to safety, and put pressure on the wound. With surprise and thanks in his eyes, the fighter looked up at him. "Thank you, person," he growled. Zack put his hand on the Ivorian's shoulder. "My friend, we're all in this together. Your people will be out of here soon." Although they were at odds with each other, the humans and Ivorians became close as the war went on. They were both desperate to stay alive. People in Ivory Coast noticed how brave and kind Zack was, and they started to see people in a new way. The evacuation went slowly but steady, with drop ships taking the hurt and civilians to safety with the brave. Zack and his soldiers held the line. The Zorgans couldn't get close because they were determined and skilled. The fight went on while the evacuation took place. Zack and his Marines fought with the Ivorian fighters, holding the line against the relentless Zorgan attack with their guns on fire. Dropships took civilians and injured people to the Valiant for safety, while the human ship gave air support and kept the Zorgan fighters at bay with its advanced weapons. All of a sudden, a huge shadow appeared over the battlefield. Zack looked up and gasped as he saw a huge Zorgan mothership come crashing down from the sky. Its hull was packed full of guns and launch bays, making it much bigger than the Brave. "Captain, there's someone coming in." Olivia's voice could be heard over the radio. From the mothership, hundreds of fighters and troop ships take off. Zack clenched his teeth. The Brave didn't have nearly as many weapons as the enemy, and he knew they wouldn't be able to hold out for much longer. He was thinking quickly to find a way out. Then a terrible thought came to mind. Could Olivia make plans to crash into the mothership? Zack spoke in a calm voice, even though everything around him was going crazy. "We're going to hit it hard." Over the radio, there was a moment of stunned silence. "Are you sure, sir?" Olivia asked, with worry in her voice. Zack said in a sad voice, "It's our only chance. We need to take away its main weapons to give the remaining Ivorians time to get away." "I get it, Captain. Setting a course now." The engines of the Valiant roared as it sped toward the Zorgan mothership. Zack stood up straight and put his hands on the arms of his command chair to steady himself. The team on the bridge worked quickly, and their faces were tense from focusing. The view screen got bigger, and the mothership's hull took up the whole thing. Zack held his breath and watched as the gap between them and them shrunk quickly. The Valiant shook as Zorgan weapons fire hit its shields, setting off alarms all over the ship. The Brave slammed into the mothership's hull with a loud crash. Metal screeched against metal as the two huge ships hit each other. The crew was hit with sparks when consoles blew up on the bridge. Zack was kicked out of his chair and hit his head on a wall. He felt a lot of pain behind his eyes and could taste blood in his mouth. Zack looked at the damage while struggling to get up. The Brave had taken a lot of damage, but the risk paid off. The mothership's main guns were turned off, and its hull was broken in several places. "Lydia, what's going on?" Zack croaked and wiped blood off his forehead. Lydia responded, "Captain, we're still working, but just barely." Her face was stained with soot. "There are no main weapons on the mothership right now, but it is sending out more people." Zack agreed, and his mind was already making up a new plan. "Prepare a group to board. We're going to mess up the reactor on the mothership." After a few minutes, Zack led a group of soldiers through the huge hole in the mothership's hull. The inside was a jumble of dark hallways and pulsing cables. The smell of ozone and burned electronics filled the air. They went deeper into the ship and saw Zargan troops coming from every direction. Their weapons were shooting plasma, and Zack and his team fought back. Each burst of fire from their pulse weapons lit up the dark. Because the mothership was so small, there was no room for mistakes or escape during the battle. It turned into a brutal close-quarters firefight. Zack pushed forward, even though his body hurt from the crash and the work of fighting. No matter what, they had to get to the plant. It would decide what would happen to the Ivorians. They finally got to the reactor room, which was a huge room full of humming machines and energy lines that were pulsed. Zack and his team got to work right away setting off explosives at important places in the structure. As Zack loaded the charges, sweat ran down his face and his fingers flew over the keypad on the detonator. As they were about to leave, more Zorgan troops rushed into the room and blocked their way out. Plasma bolts shot through the air, killing several of Zack's troops as they fell. Their armor smoldered from the impact. His heart was beating fast, so Zack hid behind a desk. They were stuck, overpowered, and didn't have enough weapons. As he looked down at the device in his hand, the thought of what he had to do hit him like a cold wave. Zack told Olivia over the radio, "Get the team back to the Valiant." His voice was calm, even though there was a lot going on. "I'll stay behind and set off the charges by hand." "Captain, no," Olivia said, her voice heavy with anger. "We're not going to leave you," Zack sharply answered. "That's an order, Commander. The people of Avor need you. Get our people out of this place." The only sound that broke the heavy silence was the sound of war. Then Olivia unwillingly said, "Yes, Captain. It was an honor to work with you." Zack gave a sad smile and tightened his grip on the bomb. "It was an honor for me. Go now, before it's too late." Zack used his pulse rifle to provide cover fire while his team fought their way back to the hole in the hull. A calm feeling came over him as he watched them fade away into the darkness. He had done what he had to do, and now it was time to finish the job. Zack took a deep breath, looked one last time at the detonator's timer, and then hit the button. There was a blinding flash of light and heat around the world, and then everything went dark. A bright flash of light came from the center of the Zorgan mothership, followed by a loud boom that shook space itself. Second blasts tore through the ship's hull and tore it apart from the inside out, making it shake and shake. As the explosion happened, pieces of the ship flew everywhere and hit nearby Zorgan ships, destroying them all. The crew of the Valiant was amazed as they watched the mothership break apart right in front of their eyes on the bridge. Olivia couldn't take her eyes off of the growing fireball that used to be the Zargan flagship. Tears were running down her face. She whispered, "He did it," but her voice was hard to make out over the noise. "We were all saved by the captain." Due to the sudden loss of their command ship, the Zorgan force became disorganized and began to retreat in a disorganized way. The remaining Ivorian ships jumped at the chance to work with the Brave to push the attackers back. When things looked hopeless, the Allies turned the tide of the battle in their favor and pushed hard to end the Zargan danger for good. As the last of the Zargan ships left the system, the crew of the Valiant felt both relieved and worn out. They did something impossible, but it cost them a lot. The ship was badly damaged, and a lot of their friends had died in the fight. But there wasn't time to be sad. They had to help the living. Over the next few hours, the Valiant and Ivorian ships worked non-stop to get the last few people off of Ivoria's destroyed surface. Thousands of Ivorians who were hurt and shocked by the shells were taken to the ship's storage bays to be safe. A lot of them cried out loud because they had lost loved ones and their homes, but there was also thanks for the people who had saved them. As the last of the survivors were brought on board, Olivia got a word from a friendly world nearby that offered to take in the Ivorian refugees. It broke her heart to give the order to go to the planet, because she knew the people there would need time to heal and rebuild. It didn't take long for word of the fight to reach every spaceport and trading post in the galaxy. People were also talking about how selfless the humans were. People who started wars were once looked down upon, but now they were seen as kind friends who would give up anything to protect innocent people. Earth Command openly scolded Zach for disobeying orders, but behind closed doors they knew that Zach's actions were helping to improve relationships with other species. They knew that in just one day, the crew of the Brave had done more for peace between people than decades of talks could ever do. A miracle took place as the Valiant limped toward the friendly world. A badly damaged escape pod that was barely working was found floating among the Zorgan mothership's wreckage. When the pod was brought on board, the crew was shocked to see Captain Zach Ryder inside, badly hurt but still living. People saw Zach's escape as an example of how strong and brave people can be, and he quickly became a symbol of hope for the Ivorian people. As he healed from his wounds, people from all over the galaxy came to pay their respects and give their help in the fight against the Zorgans. After a few weeks, when the Ivorian refugees were getting used to their new home, Zach and his crew were called to a ceremony honoring them. The High Governor of the Ivory Coast, Zelter, spoke to a crowd of thousands of people about how brave and selfless the humans were. Zelter said, "In our darkest hour, when all hope seemed lost, the humans stood by our side." His words were picked up by many news feeds and sent all over the world. They didn't fight for fame or power. They fought because they believed all life was valuable and should be protected. "We owe them money that we will never get back." The crowd cheered loudly when Zelter gave Zach and his crew the greatest honor of the Ivorians, a shiny medallion that represented the unbreakable bond between their peoples. The sound showed how strong kindness is and how people who fight for what's right will never give up. Zach graciously accepted the award, his eyes shining with tears that he hadn't cried yet. He knew the journey ahead would be long and hard, but he also knew that the Valiant and her crew would be there to show the way. They would be a light of hope in a world that really needed it. The event was very big, with thousands of Ivorians and people from all over the galaxy showing their respect for the Valiant heroes. The stage was ready, and there was a feeling of hope and togetherness in the air. Zelter stood at the platform and spoke with a heavy heart about the sacrifices people had made and the bond that had been made between their groups. Their hearts swelled with pride as they stood to the side and listened to what the High Chancellor had to say. Even though they had been through a lot, everything seemed worth it at that moment. Suddenly, there was a lot of noise from the crowd. A person wearing the unique armor of a Zorgan assassin pushed through the crowd while holding a weapon in its clawed hand. The killer raised the gun and pointed it straight at Zelter's head. When Zach understood what was going on, time seemed to slow down. He jumped forward and threw himself between the killer and the governor without thinking. When the gun went off, there was a bright flash, and Zach felt a terrible pain in his chest. Screams filled the air as the crowd broke up into pieces. The killer was already being held down by the Ivorian guards when Olivia and the rest of the crew charged forward with their guns drawn. Zach fell to the ground, and his blood started to pool below him. He got down on his knees next to him and held the human's head in his lap. "Why?" With tears in his eyes, the High Chancellor asked. "Why would you do that?" Zach coughed and blood dripped from the corner of his mouth. "I did it because it was the right thing to do," he said in a voice that was barely above a whisper. "I wanted to show that people are more than just fighters. We can be kind and give up our own needs." Zelter had tears in his eyes as he looked down at the person who was dying. "That and more, my friend, you have shown us. People will always remember what you did." It was getting harder for Zach to see as he gave a weak smile. His words came out in short gasps. "I hope this will help bring our people together. I hope that we can go forward together and stand strong against the darkness." Lydia and the other people were sad as they crowded around their dead captain. Even though they had lost a lot, they knew Zach's death would not have been in vain. Because of what Zach did, many lives were saved in the Ivorians, and as his eyes closed, those were his last thoughts. Everything was okay because he had made a change. Soon, everyone in the galaxy heard that Zach had died. They were sad about the loss of a true hero. There was a funeral service, and people from every part of the known universe were there. They came to remember the man who had died for peace and pay their respects. Lydia was on stage, and her voice was shaking as she talked about her friend and captain. "Zach Ryder was more than just a soldier," she said. Her words were picked up by news feeds all over the galaxy. "He had a big picture view and thought people could be more than the sum of their parts. He taught us that there is always hope, even when things look the worst." As the service ended, the important people who were there made a serious promise. They would continue Zach's work by working non-stop to create a galaxy where all living things could live together in peace. They would stand together against the risks they faced, using the bonds they had made in battle to make them stronger. So Zach Ryder continued to inspire people after he died. His death had become a gathering point and a sign of how powerful kindness and understanding can be. Because of one brave person who dared to think of a better future, the galaxy would never be the same, but it would be better and stronger. The story is now over. Please like and subscribe to our station if you like this story and want to help us out. And I will heart every reply that says 88%. Thanks for your time.